It is I, the Poptimist, and today we have my good friend Danny Shaw-Remeta. Danny, good to see you, bud.
Good to see you, man. This is great.
I know. It's so different, dude.
Yeah,
it's different
awesome.
than a basement.
I know. Yeah. I was like, whoa, I'm walking into a real studio here.
I know.
This is cool.
Well, probably for about a year or so, the podcast, we filmed it at your house.
Yeah.
In Antioch, down in the basement.
Which was fun.
It was fun,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, it was like a step up from what I was doing.
For sure.
Which was
Yeah.
sitting on the couch in our living room.
Yep.
At Shawnee,
Yeah.
in Madison.
Oh, yeah.
And now there's multiple cameras, dude.
I know. And the TV screen, and yeah, this is fully legit, dude.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you. No, it feels good, man. And plus, it's cool to have the big studio out there as well.
Yeah.
Where I film the bands at and do that whole thing. Just allows me to be creative. I love Kneecap very much. It's become my home for sure.
Yeah.
So
No, this is great. I didn't even honestly know this was over here. I'm not in the west side very much, but
yeah. Well, dude, I mean, I didn't really know either until I just looked it up. I was like, I wonder if there's a public access TV station in Nashville.
yeah.
Because I was getting stoned with Isaac on the phone.
Yeah.
Like 2 a.m. and told him I wanted to do the Halloween special last year. So that was really the first swing at that. So, and this podcasting room opened up in January.
Gotcha.
So this is a relatively new function
Nice.
for it, but it's been good.
Cool. Yeah, no, it looks legit, and yeah, I might even have to look into maybe renting
should.
some space or seeing what the process is.
It's a pretty simple process.
Cool.
I would say do it when you're not under a time crunch.
Right.
Because I did it under the time crunch last year, and I had so much shit to get crammed in,
Yeah.
like outside of here to get ready for the Halloween special last year. But now I kind of have a rhythm down, like a way that we're doing it. So it's been good.
Yeah, I see that. I came in here and we got in here quickly and everything. It's great.
Yeah.
We used to sometimes take us an hour
Oh,
to
yeah.
just
To
get
set up.
all the lights and the levels right and everything.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Big
It's
step up for sure.
a better environment in here. Talk to me a little bit about the Eat Sleep Rock podcast. You guys have that coming back?
Yeah, so Josh and I...
Josh Norfleet.
Josh Norfleet, or Josh Clay. We're going to basically... We did a couple episodes a couple years ago as kind of like a music industry, like a Nashville local rock podcast, basically. And we just got busy, and so now we're just finally making time for it. So I would say we're looking probably in the next couple months for like a first episode. We're still kind of figuring out all the details, but it's going to be pretty simple. Josh interviewing local musicians, local industry people, things like that.
Nice.
It's going to be called Eat Sleep Rock Talk.
Perfect.
Yeah, nice and simple right off the brand.
Definitely. And you're also working on kind of getting a live production wing of Eat Sleep Rock off the ground.
Yeah, so I'm kind of, it's one of those things, and this is like a theme of mine as far as like how my business, like how I usually get into businesses, but people already who know me kind of call me for production stuff and, renting sound equipment, and if they need a sound guy, things like that. So I already have kind of loose connections, loose opportunities kind of that have been presenting themselves over the last year. And it's just kind of time to legitimize. So basically on our website, esrnashville.com, I'm going to put a productions page where you can basically get information and inquire about like a full event. It's mostly going to be centered around like live event production. So anything from like corporate events to backyard parties to, even just if you're a solo musician and, you get hired for a gig and you need sound production or lighting or anything like that, we would be kind of that solution, basically.
Hell yeah. No, it's kind of been cool to see the evolution that you've gone through with like the live sound stuff, because I know it's like you had mentioned, all of our friends kind of call you whenever they need something. And the other thing that I feel like we should bring up is Zeppelin Night.
Yeah, it's on hold this year. It did not happen, but it's mostly just because the Garden of Eden, who I kind of co-host it with, they were on a tour pretty much all through June.
So
basically.
They've been busy.
Yeah, it wasn't even so much that it was like going to interfere with when Zeppelin Night would have been booked, because I think we usually shoot for August. It was just them going on a month tour and then having to come back and like prep for Zeppelin Night.
It's a lot.
Kind of the same thing for the other bands involved. Like in the past, Hippies and Cowboys have been involved, and we reached out to them, and they're starting to get like a lot of traction, in outside markets, like out of the city and stuff. So, I mean, it's cool to see. It's a little bittersweet, but we're getting to the point where like a lot of the local kind of ideas that Eat Sleep Rock likes to do, the musicians and the artists that are supposed to be involved are getting too successful to have time for it, which, like I said, I'm so happy for them.
Yeah.
But it is kind of getting to the point where it's like, well, why spend our time on Zeppelin covers and selling out? But, because our goal has always been to like sell out Basement East. We've always had a good turnout there, but we haven't sold it out. But it's like, okay, well, why focus on that for the bands, at least, when they can go make way more money? Because in shows where it's like a lot of artists and things like that, last year we did pay the artists. Before that, it was like a full like charity show basically, to raise money, but last year it was for profit and everyone got paid a good amount. But I mean, I know what artists make out of town if they're good and they have connections, and so I would venture to say that both of the two bands that we would have mostly needed to make it happen just had too many other money making opportunities.
Yeah, well, I feel like the events like that are better now, probably taking that into consideration over the winter months.
For sure, yeah. And honestly, I think now that we're more established, we could pull that off. Before, it was always, this is this new thing, we're not really sure how well it's going to work.
You're having to sell it.
Exactly. Now people ask us about it, kind of like what you're not the first person this summer has been like, well, what happened to Zeppelin Night? And it's like, well, we've just been all so busy doing other stuff. But I would agree with you. I think that is kind of the solution, is to just, now that people know what it is, people like it, we can kind of just switch it to like a winter or like maybe fall thing when everyone kind of gets back from tour and all that stuff.
Well, the first one was super magical at the OG basement.
Yeah.
Because that
one sold out for sure, and that one was in the winter actually.
Yeah, it was on like a Tuesday night in January or some shit, right?
Yeah,
it was on a weeknight in January.
Correct. Yeah, it was like right at the beginning of the year. It was like
January 7th,
6th or 7th or something like that, and it was like super cold. And I remember that
it was kind of rainy and shitty out.
That was kind of the test. We were like, well, if we can do this at this time at OG Basement, then we can do a bigger show at Basement East in the summer when things are more working in our favor, basically, was kind of the thought behind that.
Well, you have to do what would be perceived as a shitty gig first in order to get the good ones.
Yeah, well, that, I'll be honest with you, wasn't really our choice, and I know we've talked about it. We would have, which I'm glad that we didn't. I'm glad that I'm not always an advocate for how the industry kind of like gatekeeps, but
I know we've talked about that a ton.
Absolutely, but I will say when it comes to booking shows and promotion, it was probably for our own good that they wouldn't just let some strangers that hadn't proven themselves book a show at the Basement East, because the truth is even though we thought we were ready, we definitely needed the learning experiences from that OG Basement show in order to move up. At least I feel that way. I don't know if everyone else does, but I definitely feel like those stepping stones were necessary, because now we know how to put on a bigger production show. And the truth is like, you can say you know how to do anything as a concept, but we had just never done it before, and balancing all that. We had problems at the venue. People got kicked out of our show the first time we had it at Basement East. I had to like have an hour long meeting with the manager that night who was working at Basement East the first time we did the show. And a lot of it, I will admit, I'm not going to go into too many details, but it had a little bit more to do with the fact that we had like underage people playing in the show.
Yeah.
So, because it was in collaboration with a local Nashville music school. I'm not going to mention them, but because of that, there were all these like kind of parameters with underage people being at the Basement East, and I don't think that they were quite ready for that, and it was just a little more hoop jumping through, so to speak, than I think we were expecting. And so that's kind of why we took some of those elements out the following year, was to kind of simplify it, you know?
Yeah, well, it's you have to kind of shoot for the moon on the first time you're doing anything and see where you fall short and what you got to improve the next time around.
Yeah.
And that's really, it's the only way to fucking learn, as much as it pains me to say that. Now, I am definitely one in the same way to talk shit about gatekeeping in the industry, the music business industrial complex.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
But there is some methods to the madness, unfortunately, as much as I would love to 100% dismiss everything that they stand for and everything that they say. You can't always do that.
Yeah. Well, and I will say to give some credit to the quote unquote, and I wouldn't even call him, like, technically there were forces above the person who kind of brought us up that were gatekeeping, but I will shout out the person, like, we would have never been able to do any of this stuff without Gil Costello.
Yeah.
He believed in what we did. We booked a couple other shows at OG Basement. He's the local promoter for the OG Basement. He helps a lot with Basement East. He's been involved with both of those venues in one way or another for, I think, like 7, 8 or so, maybe even longer. I don't, maybe I'm mistaken on that, on the timeline, but he's a big player and he cares about the little guys. He is one of those people who, like, really tries to help people that try to help themselves, which is what I think the key is. Everyone wants to sit there and say, like, oh, I can do this, I can do that, but when you're kind of the person who's helping those people do that, I think you can see who's cut out for it and who's not. And he believed in us, but he also, I remember when me and Scotty, because we booked a couple, like, just small original shows at OG Basement that were successful, and we were kind of like, hey, we want to do this at Basement East. And he wasn't gatekeeping. I think he just knew that if we went and asked, that we were just not going to even be acknowledged.
Yeah.
And so he kind of came in and was like, well, how about you do it here at OG Basement? And he kind of guided us through. And I mean, we might not have realized it at the time. And to be honest, you know me and Scotty enough to know at the time we were kind of like, oh, why do we have to jump through these hoops? But now that it's all said and done and looking back, Gil really kind of like guided us through that and basically was like, look, I believe in you guys and I can see that you guys have ambition and wherewithal to kind of like put things together, but the truth is at the level of like a Basement East size concert, I mean, there's over $1,000+ if not more on the line just from the promoter standpoint alone.
So from your
correct,
what you're putting, and what does that entail? What is your part of booking these shows?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, most of it, kind of like anything, and I'm realizing this more and more the further I kind of go along, is it's like a lot of just emailing. You know what I'm saying? It's like a lot of email chains and like just laying out information and kind of keeping everyone looped in, so to speak. I don't think we ever had to put a deposit down. I think there are some, like, I want to say like out of town touring artists that they probably do put deposit. Like, you probably have to put a deposit down would be my guess.
Cover production.
Yeah, or just like kind of as like a fail safe. Like if the whole thing flops, well then at least they have that deposit. I don't want to speak to their terms. I don't know, but they didn't make us do that. But they lay out the terms, and then we have to agree to the terms. There is actually a contract, basically, that says, you know, this is what we're going to pay for production based. Basically, it starts with a pitch. So we pitch our idea. We mention a couple different nights and a time of year that we would like, roughly what we think it's going to produce. Like I mean, you're in sales, you've been in sales, so you know it's literally a pitch, and then they usually come back with like if some suggested adjustments maybe, and then some dates, and then once the date is picked, picked in quotation marks, a hold, really. So what they do is they hold it until you can actually submit like tangible things. So like the the artwork, and like basically until you present pretty much like documentation and things. I'm trying to, there's a word I'm thinking of, but I can't right now. But basically, once you have like tangible supporting things that are like, this is going to happen, then they'll actually turn the hold into like a confirmed date. And then usually announcements come right after that. Ticket sales, or like a link, they provide us with a link and all that good stuff. But the other kind of little, I mean, it's kind of assumed, but the little known thing is that these venues, they stay on you about ticket sales. So like we would get emailed like every couple weeks leading up to the show that's like, hey guys, this is where the ticket sales are at. Either great job, which in our situation it was not great job, at least the first time. The second time it was. The last one we did, I think at the day of show or the day before, we had like 110 pre-sales. So we were like, yeah, this is great. We're going to be fine.
Because that also signals that there's people that are going to come day of and buy tickets at the door.
Absolutely, yeah. And honestly, at that point, when there's like over 100, at least in our case, production's covered at that point. So everything, and the venue obviously feels way better when that happens, because they know they're going to make their money, because they're the one who's going to fork out the check at the end of the night to us, anything beyond production. And so once they have that pre-sale money, they're like, cool, we've at least covered our expenses, you know.
Because I think the other thing that musicians have to keep in mind is they're running a business.
Totally.
These venues are running a business.
Absolutely. They have their labor too. And actually, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
That's one of the main things that was new about Basement East, is there's not one set production fee. So based on your pitch, they decide on the staff that they need for that night, and then they give you a production budget based on their estimated like labor and expenses for that night.
Because they have a sound guy, they have bartenders, they have front door staff.
And different shows need different things. So sometimes, like a lot of times, metal shows need a little bit more security, and usually the venue is the one who forks that out. So I don't know, because I've never put a metal show on there, but my guess is that like that would be an example where like maybe the production budget would be a little higher, because they have to provide a little bit more security. Or that was, I think, one of the things with that year that we had, you know, minors basically playing on stage, is they needed a little bit more staff to kind of help manage that. So I think that affected the production budget.
Well, there's also parents and other kids that are friends.
Oh, yeah.
With...
that was one of the issues. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
The parents, basically there was something about like some treatment of a kid in a restricted area of the venue, and they got quote unquote kind of thrown out of the venue, and then the parents were like still inside, and then pretty much like complained to the venue. It was one of those situations, and that's the other thing that you can't, like, until you do it, you can't even think about. It's easy to say like, oh, we'll have everything under control. When there's a couple hundred people at a venue, you don't have control. You can't control the situation. Like, part of why I had that first Zeppelin night at the first one we did at Basement East, why I had to have that long conversation with the manager on staff that night at the end of the show, was because all these things had happened during the show while I wasn't around, not that I wasn't around, like I was messing around or anything, but I was
were working.
I was running the show.
Yeah.
I was making sure that the artists were getting on stage on time. I was more playing that stage manager role, basically. I was sitting there with the songs and being like, hey guys, we're going to have to ask the venue for extra time if we don't stay on schedule, But what I realized is that there were other things happening in the background and altercations with, venue staff and some of the kids who were playing on stage that night. And at the end of it, I kind of had to, and this is where, again, things that you just could never even think about, but I had to not only talk to the venue, but after that I had to talk to the owner of the school and kind of apologize and say, hey, I'm so sorry. I didn't really, I obviously we're not the venue, but like, I'm sorry about the treatment of the kids. And, obviously there was a miscommunication somewhere, and I worked it out with her. We obviously didn't continue having them involved, but it wasn't a contentious situation at the end of it. It was more just like, we kind of both agreed that it was more trouble than it was kind of worth, because they actually have their own, the school I'm speaking about, they actually have their own Zeppelin like cover band that tours and plays around. And so they kind of do this all the time anyway. And so it wasn't like these kids never played Zeppelin on a big stage or anything. It was just kind of, it was a thing to make it more attractive to a larger audience. But what we realized is once we kind of established what it was those first 2 years, even though they were at separate venues, was that people loved it. They wanted to come and watch young, talented players play those old Zeppelin songs.
Dude, we saw that fucking Zeppelin documentary.
Dude. Great choice.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Yeah, it was cool. It was John Paul Jones, in my opinion, greatest rock bass player of all time.
Oh, yeah.
He's number one, dude. Like, and people will say, oh, Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney, yes. And even people bring up Bill Wyman from the Rolling Stones. Bill Wyman, he didn't play on every Rolling Stones songs. A lot of the time when they were in the studio in their prime period, well, maybe not necessarily a lot of their time, but like some classic Stone songs, it was either Keith Richards or Mick Taylor on bass in the studio.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. But fucking John Paul Jones plays bass on every fucking Zeppelin song.
Yeah.
And he's ridiculous. But that documentary was really good. It was cool to kind of see what the start of things were for them. And like I had already kind of known the story and the fact that Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones were like already working successful session musicians.
Yeah.
The only, I have a couple criticisms of that documentary. One, I would love to hear more of Peter Grant in the role that he played, because he was such a large part of that. Because I felt like they kind of breezed past that.
Is it Peter? Is it Peter Green or Grant?
Peter Grant. So Peter Green was, I think, the dude that was in Fleetwood Mac.
That's what okay, sorry. I'm mixing him up. My bad. Peter Green is, that's right.
But
the only good part of Fleetwood Mac. I said
fuck Fleetwood Mac, dude. I hate Fleetwood Mac so much.
Peter Green is the only, and mark my words, listeners, he is the only good part of Fleetwood Mac. Yeah. Take that in.
But yeah, I would love, because it, like, in the documentary, they were talking about that they basically got an unprecedented contract, right? Because they were recording their first album at night at, I think it was Olympia Studios in London, doing overnight sessions, and they were able to go to labels and be like, "Hey, we already recorded this. We just need distribution, basically."
See, that's what I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know that they had recorded it themselves and then were going to seeking distribution. That was what I wasn't aware of. They Wolfpacked that shit before Wolfpack.
Yes, dude, exactly. Well, it's what I think of the most successful or smart business bands do today.
I agree.
Where it's like they already, and it's a little bit different because back then they didn't have the internet. So there was no built-in following to already what they did, but they had the connections. Yeah. And that's really what matters, fortunately and unfortunately. Fortunately in Zeppelin's case.
Yeah. for sure.
Because they had someone who was business savvy guiding them along. My other criticism of the documentary didn't talk about any Jimmy Page's 14-year-old girlfriends. They talked all of fucking about how all the three other dudes were married and in relationships, had kids, da-da-da.
Yeah.
The whole time, it mentioned nothing about Jimmy Page and dating.
Did he that early on, though? Because I think it was specifically, because I remember at the end of it, because it ended like kind of as it was starting, like
As they were blowing up.
It was really a true, like, preliminary, like it was the early story of Zeppelin, because the way it ended, I was like, oh, it feels like this is just kind of, getting kicked off.
In my opinion, once a pedophile, always a pedophile. Allegedly.
It's probably true, yeah.
Allegedly.
For sure. I think that one of the things that surprised me was watching those clips of like the audience reaction to their first concert.
They didn't really give a fuck?
No, they didn't like it,
Yeah.
really. They were like, what are all these loud noise? Like, I remember seeing like
them doing Dazed and Confused.
like a girl like putting her fucking like hands over her ears and
Yeah.
like looking at her child and being like, you shouldn't be looking at this, basically.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. It's I'm not like actively playing music, but I would imagine that it's like reassuring to see like one of what's considered like one of the greatest rock bands to ever live, to see like on footage people like not that into it when it was first happening. That was just very interesting for me to see. It was like not everyone loved this right off the bat.
No.
That was very insightful for me.
I heard they were going to be doing some shows, dude. Have you heard about this at all?
No, I don't believe it. There's no way.
That's just what I heard.
Maybe with John Bonham's, is it Jason Bonham?
Yeah.
I think that's the only time they has been with Jason Bonham.
Yeah. Which is the right way to do it. My opinion. If you don't have Jason Bonham, you can't do it.
Right. Well, and I think I would believe that they will. In fact, I would go as far as saying that maybe these documentaries are leading up to a farewell tour, like a true final
Are there
farewell.
supposed to be more documentaries?
It seemed, I don't know. It seemed like it was setting it up for that. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
It seemed like that to me as well. Because it really just, I was surprised because the documentary is becoming Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize, basically it covered right through Zeppelin 2 when they played a show at Royal Albert Hall and were just starting to like blow the fuck up.
Yeah, and get attention in the United States.
Yeah.
I think that was the key too, is because they did, they did one tour in the United States, and they still, I think, were like not that big in the UK, and then they came back from because the documentary ended right when they came back from tour, and that was like right when
they had like 2 big sold out shows at the Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah, where
however
they
many shows
came
it was.
back from their US tour, and all of a sudden everyone was like, "Oh, we care about you now," basically, kind of deal.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I feel like with that period too, that time period, it's okay that it's come and passed.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? I feel like a lot of artists and a lot of bands, they look at that and feel like that's what they want, but it's just a different day and age. Like rock and roll isn't the common man's music anymore.
No, it's not. It's hard to say. I mean, maybe in my opinion, it's hard to say what is, though. What is the common man's music now?
I would still, honestly, and maybe it's because we're in Nashville, I would say country for sure.
Okay, yeah, I would say. I don't know if that goes for the whole United States or like definitely not the whole world.
I agree with that. But I mean, with younger generations, hip hop and rap.
Yeah.
Like rap now is entering into a period where like Snoop Dogg is seen as the Led Zeppelin of rap, or Ice Cube is the Beatles. You get what I'm saying now? Where it's like these are classic rap artists now, in the same way that in the 80s and 90s the term classic rock started popping up.
Yeah. And now Green Day's classic rock.
Yeah.
I guess my thing, and maybe I'm not looking at it the right way, my problem with it, and I see what you're saying as far as like the old stuff. So like NWA and, you know, like Biggie Smalls and like Tupac, like all that stuff has like deep messaging into it, because rap largely in the beginning was about the stories. You know, it's similar to country, where it's like you may not be the biggest fan of the guitar, you may not be the biggest fan of his voice, or like even, I'm jumping around a little bit, like even folk, like Bob Dylan. You might not love the way Bob Dylan sounds, but it's the message, it's the story.
Well, that's what resonates with people.
Right. But that's the opposite direction that rap and hip hop has been going from what I see is, and there are still rappers that tell stories and stuff, but that's not really the mainstream. And I've actually asked a lot of people, because I do like rap music. I have trouble connecting with a lot of like the modern, like the newer stuff that keeps coming out, but I ask people like, what is attractive to you about, or what's attractive about this music? And they say time and time again, it's like the beat. I hear a lot of people say it's the beat. I just like the beat. And I'm like, okay, well,
what's a producer's game?
Well, and that's great. You know, you can like a beat, but to me, rap and hip hop, like what made it kind of that general common man's music is that you could dress up a common man message in a rap song, you know? Yeah. But it's like, that's not what's really happening anymore. And I'm sure it's just a part of like getting older, you know, you understand the new trends less and less the older you get. But I definitely find myself kind of questioning that, because I think in the past it was very easy to kind of be like, okay, well, this is why people like this. Like for like grunge in the 90s, it was like kind of an offshoot of like the classic rock that we knew, and a little more
punk rock.
And punk, and a little more edgy and a little more anti-establishment and stuff. And it's like that very much made sense. I can't put my finger on like the reason why more and more popular rap, like the messaging is going away. Like,
well, the other thing that I would say is that it's cheap to make as well.
For sure.
And that's a big part of it, because you got to think with what we do in the environment that we're in, it costs money.
For sure.
To have 5-6 people in a room playing music together, even if you're in a recording studio. And it does if you're a hip-hop artist as well, but you're having to pay a producer versus having to pay a producer engineer,
right,
versus having to pay like the band if they're there, and work out all of that, you know. I would be curious to really learn a little bit more about the hustle and the business side of what's going on in like the hip hop world today. I feel like everything is so fragmented now, especially with the internet.
Well, yeah, I think the answer is probably the same struggles that you struggle with, you know, as, you know, a rock and alternative musician is, you know, it's largely based on social media. And, you know, you have a lot of people who are blowing up, which is kind of advised against, or I would at least advise against from like a public, like a PR or marketing standpoint. I would argue that it's not as good to blow up online from something that's not your music, because then you got to transition your fans to your music, right? But I think it's largely the same stuff. It's like you're constantly battling for attention of your viewers or your, you know, the target market that you're trying to focus on. And I think that and honestly, I think this kind of answers a little bit of what I was talking about. Like some of the stuff I do know. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I don't understand. Some of it I don't understand, but I think like shock rap, a lot of it, like the reason why is it's like, it's just simple. It's get attention. It's like, how do you stand out from all the, I mean, think about even, and it's funny because he's like our generations of shock rap. But like, remember Tyler, the Creator?
Dude, I love Tyler, the Creator.
I do too.
Yeah.
Remember that first video, Yonkers, where I remember being in school and people were like, Tyler, the Creator ate a cockroach in his music video. And I remember being like, okay, I have to see this.
He openly uses slurs in his music.
Yeah, but yeah. And, hey, and I'm not saying that like that's what everyone should do, but like he had to be shocked, or he didn't have to be, but like that was how he stood out. That was how he got attention.
Yes, but I also feel like that was probably part of his personality, and he was just able to amplify those aspects,
maybe
of his personality.
For
the
sure.
same way, similar to Eminem.
Yeah, it's always hard when you have like those really eccentric personality artists, kind of that. It's hard to differentiate like what's real and what's performative.
For sure,
because I
can deeply relate.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I wonder that about Tyler the Creator a little bit. It's like, how much of it is just like a story to be shocking, and how much of it is just like he's a crazy eccentric kind of guy.
Well, the thing that I like about Tyler the Creator, I can't say that I love everything he's released.
No,
but I can listen to it and be like, damn, this is pretty good. Even if it's not my cup of tea, I appreciate. It's the same way with like Bob Dylan, where it's like I appreciate the artistry. It's just not my cup of tea.
Same.
I always really loved that album Wolf by Tyler the Creator. That's my favorite album of his. I very vividly remember walking into Bull Moose Music in Maine, where I grew up, and I was probably 21 or 22 when this album came out. But I got that album, and I also got Because the Internet by Childish Gambino.
Oh, yeah,
which
great.
is a great fucking album. And also Yeezus, because they all kind of came out in the same time period, I think within like a year of each other,
that sounds
of each
right.
other.
Yeah.
And Kanye, he's another one, dude, where what's the difference between Kanye being performative and Kanye really meaning something?
That is, I think, a question that everyone is asking.
I don't think Kanye knows the difference, to be fair.
I don't think he does either. I think he's... Yeah. I don't know what to say about Kanye, honestly. I don't hate the guy. I will say that as a Jewish man, I do not hate the guy. I just don't know what to think, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, Kanye... He is a fantastic artist, and he had such a prime period.
Yeah,
like
he's a genius. He's a genius. Dude.
Yeah,
like it makes it less fun to admit it when he says he's a genius all the time. But if you listen to some of his old songs, dude, it's undeniable.
Yeah.
He is a fantastic music creator.
Yeah,
through and through.
He is, like, even Kanye has said this, but he said he's on the level of, like, Leonardo da Vinci, you know what I mean? Or some shit like that. It might not be a direct quote, but honestly, I kind of fucking agree, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
I'd put Eminem up there, too.
I haven't always followed through Eminem's entire career.
Really?
But, I mean, over the past 20 years... You turn on pop radio, he's got a song still on there.
Oh, dude, none of the good stuff is on pop radio.
Really?
He is. I mean, honestly, I was funny the other day. I pulled up a YouTube video, and it was literally just rappers talking about Eminem. And it was literally a compilation, and Kanye was actually one of them. And it was just a compilation of famous rappers that everyone knows talking about Eminem, and almost every single one was like, when it comes down to it, you can write songs, you can collab with anyone. When it comes down to it, verse for verse, word for word, step into a room with Eminem, he will be like, he will come up with the better rap, the better story, the better lyrics. He's a master lyricist, is basically what everyone was pretty much saying. And I have to agree. It's like, he doesn't always have the best hit songs. And honestly, I would even go as far as saying that like a lot of like the tracks and the music that he has in his songs aren't always the best or the hardest hitting. But like from a lyrical perspective, which is what rap and hip hop's like, maybe not so much hip hop, but at least rap, like what the roots are from is the lyrics. And pretty much everyone undeniably says that he's the best. It's problematic, of course, because of his skin color. And they mention that in a lot of, like, you know, black artists will say, like, you know, a lot of people will hate me. Like, I think there's a clip of, like, Jay-Z or someone saying, like, I might get hate for saying this, but, like, Eminem is the best. And they'll even say, because, you know, rap is it's innately a black type of music. Like, it came from black culture, basically. Totally. It doesn't originate from white people culture. But the fact that he is the best is undeniable, and that's what, you know, all these artists were saying pretty much over and over.
Yeah.
Don't cancel me for saying that. I'm just repeating what I heard in a YouTube video. Pull the clip. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We're good.
Yeah. Eminem is definitely super fucking talented. It's crazy, man, because, I mean, how long have you been in Nashville now for?
Dude, last month was my 11th year.
Damn.
I've been here 11 years now.
So think about all of the industry changes that have happened, because when you got here in 2014?
Correct.
So probably just in that time frame is right around the time that everybody started to have a smartphone in their pocket.
No, it was a little before that. I mean, I remember in high school, because I moved here right when I graduated, basically. I remember in high school, like, basically
2013?
2012 to 2014 was kind of I remember being, like, a junior in high school and, like, not, like, having pretty much a smartphone at my fingertips, basically.
I was probably 21 when that happened. So probably like 2012, you're right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, those first couple of years, streaming wasn't good on your phone yet. I don't know if you remember that.
Well, I still had an iTouch.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I had my. It was funny because I remember, like, in my pocket, I would always have, like, my phone, but then I would still listen to music on my iTouch. That's one of those things, like, kids nowadays wouldn't understand. But it's like they hadn't transitioned the music part to the smartphone. It's like smartphones were cool because you could, like, go online and you could do all this.
Go on Facebook.
Exactly. You had all these apps, but they really didn't. I would even go as far as saying, like, man, it was like the last, I would say, like 7 or 8 years before they really made those apps, like, really reliable enough to, because I feel like even still I had, like, a music library on my phone. Like, I didn't switch over until to, like, not, because I don't, like, who buys, I know it's so bad to say that, but it's like,
Who buys physical media?
Who buys physical media anymore? It's like, why would you?
Yeah.
You know, and it sucks to say that, and we can, you know, we've had the conversation so many times. Everyone has the conversation about how bad it is and all that stuff, but it's just the way that it's going, and has been for a long time. But I remember distinctively being like the day where I think even someone said to me, they were like, why do you still listen to your playlists and, like, the songs that you have downloaded onto your iTouch? Like, why not just get a streaming service? And I remember being like, well, you can get, like, any song? And they were like, yeah, literally any song, just search it. And I remember kind of being like, I don't know if I trust it or believe it. And then, of course, you know, like everyone, I made the switch.
Yeah, I prefer Apple Music to Spotify personally.
I use YouTube Music.
Yeah, that's right, because you're a big YouTube music fan.
Yeah. I'm also grandfathered in. So what's now YouTube Premium was YouTube Red almost a decade ago, and the beta test version was $8.99, and I subscribed at $8.99, and so now I still have YouTube Premium for $8.99 a month, and so you get. I feel like Google should pay me for this plug, but basically you get ad-free YouTube and you get a whole music app all in one. So to me, it was worth it.
Dude, I honestly need to pay for like YouTube Premium. It's the thing that I use the most, more than even like HBO or any of the other apps that are out there.
Yeah.
Dude, have you heard about the AI band?
I've heard about. I haven't heard it, but I've heard people talking about it.
Here, let me see if I gotta remember what the name is, because I did post about this when it originally happened. But yeah, there's this band that started blowing up that's allegedly AI, the Velvet Sundown. Eric, is there a way that you can play a little bit of the Velvet Sundown in our headphones so Danny can hear it?
I do not have a way to play.
Okay. I'll show it to you after. But
Cool.
They started blowing up, and it's like you can very clearly see on Spotify they have like 500,000 followers now.
Wow.
And it's an AI band, dude. And I will tell you, dude, it doesn't sound bad. You can tell that it's AI still.
Sure.
Like there's that uncanny valley even for your ears where you're like, this isn't quite right.
Yeah.
But it sounds pretty fucking good. Like sonically, it sounds pretty fucking good. And it's scary, dude.
It is. Yeah. It's hard to say where things are going to go. There's going to be a good side and a bad side. I think that's the biggest thing that I think people should keep in mind about AI across the board is that, you know, there's all these great things, the innovation, the positives, but equally, and the thing is you don't ever usually see what all the negative consequences are until later. So they snowball. It's kind of like the internet now. It's like now everyone's like, well, don't believe everything you heard on the internet or everything you see on the internet, because now we know that anyone can kind of...
Some of us know.
Yeah, well, some of us, exactly. But it's like now most people who have a half a brain know, you know, you can't believe whatever you see on the internet. But it's like 5 years ago, like, even... We'll say longer than that. I remember, it's funny, I even laugh at myself, like before, like the first time Trump got elected. Like, I remember all the articles, like that was really the beginning of, like right up to the 2016 election. I feel like that was when people were really testing like what they could dupe people with, so to speak. It was like dare I say the words, fake news galore. You know, it's like that was, I think, when we started to like really realize that like, oh, people are putting false articles out there just so people will believe it and share it.
Well, the other thing that I would say is, and I agree with you on that, but it's what gets clicks, because people are very critical of the media, as they should be.
Sure.
But consumers have a role to play in this, because they're also clicking on those quote-unquote fake news articles, and they're wanting to like, people want to either be out, most people in general want to be fucking outraged, whether they're on the right or the left. They want to be upset, and the thing I feel like with that, like with the Trump thing, and this has been talked about a fucking ton, but I feel like people are never truly critical of him in the ways that they should be. It's all just the retarded shit that we see. That is the fake news shit.
Right.
Of why you should hate him, and that's what people are parroting back. They're never talking about the fact that he has the opportunity to pardon Edward Snowden, and he's choosing not to.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, because there are some very fair criticisms of him, but
Agreed.
it's never the fair criticisms that the media gives.
Right.
Someone like Bill Maher or Jon Stewart, yes, I would say they are people who or Jimmy Dore. You know, Indy was talking to us about him last night.
Absolutely.
They have fair criticisms of him. Those are the voices that I want to hear, is people that are balanced in their view and their brain is not just completely rotted because of whatever the buzzword or slogan is of the week. And as we kind of degenerated in our society, and basic human respect from person to person has gone out of the fucking window, I feel like all of the shit as far as like people getting upset, it's that they want to get upset about something, because we are such a coddled and comfortable country now. Like, we're never going to have a fucking civil war, another civil war in this country.
No.
Never. It's not going to fucking happen.
Dude, we have TikTok. Why would we?
Exactly. We have TikTok. We have Netflix. You can get a pizza now and finance it, dude. Have you seen that?
I have, actually. Yeah, I did see it.
Were you the creator of that?
No, but I did see interest. my pizzas would have 15% interest compounding hourly, so you don't want to buy pizza from me.
But I think you get what I'm saying now.
I totally do. I think the people who create that stuff know and understand, and this is, along
Human
the lines
nature.
of and human nature is, it's a lot harder. It's easier to trigger an emotional response from the average person when the ideas are simple. When it's, this is bad. It's when it's a gray area and you have to really think about
Nuance.
it. It's a lot harder to just be angry about something because you have to actually put thought into it. Because the truth is people like Trump, yes, there's a lot of valid criticisms, but there are good things that he has done. And I will be the person to say that on the podcast. Like, I have seen some of the things that he has done, and I've been like, yeah, I think that should be done. But he's also done some things where I'm like, why would he do that? That doesn't really make any sense to me. I don't agree with that. But when you're going after the purpose of like triggering a mass emotional response from people, especially if you know like what their tendencies are, which most of the time, whichever party you fall under, the people who are trying to trigger a response from you know what those triggers
bothers you.
are.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's a lot easier to create that and to basically like, get that, fuel that fire if it's at least portrayed as like a cut and dry situation. Now, very rarely are these situations super cut and dry. Sometimes they are. But, it's a lot easier to present your one-sided argument if it's presented in that way. And
it's the divide and conquer strategy, which Trump also does.
Totally.
Like, that's one of the main tools in his fucking bag.
Absolutely. Yeah, he speaks in absolutes, and that's one of the things that really resonates with his followers is, they, and I will even go as far as saying it's a lot of like that baby boomer generation who, if you look historically back at, say like the right-wing Republicans would back in the day, it was those strong kind of presenting leaders who would speak in absolutes, the Ronald Reagans, even, I mean, I know he wasn't Republican, but like JFK, dude, like he was very much like, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And
we're going to put a man on the moon.
Exactly. Yeah. And he was very much like assertive in that way. And so, and I will say, to accurately, at least in my opinion, criticize the left is, they've been kind of bad about that for a while, is that they try and pander to what they think their party's ideals are, which maybe they are the overall like ideals and opinions, but at the end of the day, I think people vote and they follow based on principle. Like I mean, it's easy to sway dumb people online, that's kind of what we're talking about. But I think educated voters, people who are not just the people who are going to believe something online, they follow belief systems and they follow someone who is that they believe is going to carry out those belief systems. And, that's one of my biggest criticisms of the left, because I in college was a Bernie bro. Like, I was definitely someone who liked Bernie Sanders, and now I won't talk about it, but I think I would call Bernie Sanders controlled opposition is what I would consider him now. But what I felt is like when they put Hillary in front of him, to me, it was one of those things where it was like, it felt as if they didn't want him because he was so like he was so pushy. He was not gonna like.
Well, he had a populist message for the left in the same way that Trump has a populist message for the right.
Exactly. And he was unwavering. And honestly, those debates, like if it would have come down to, like, imagine what those debates would have been
between Bernie and Trump.
Dude.
Yeah, it would have been.
That would have been prime
interesting.
television right there, you know? And it's like, but the thing is I think that's kind of what, you know, back, pre-2016, what I think the left kind of missed was that, you know, you can kind of pander and play to what people like. You can't, in a sense, the president is a fixture. Like everyone kind of knows that the president doesn't make all the decisions.
They set the tone for the culture, though.
They set the tone, but they can't just be a fixture. And I hate to say it, but like I definitely feel like that's like there's so much stuff that even before, like when she was Secretary of State and stuff, there's a lot of things surrounding Hillary Clinton, like when she was even Secretary of State, that's like
Benghazi.
We can go into all the details if you want, but that's exactly what I was referring to, 100% at Benghazi. And it's like, okay, you're gonna choose a candidate that has these controversies surrounding them.
And ignore them entirely.
Exactly, and ignore them entirely. And then anyone who says that they don't think, basically, literally, if you remember, and I don't want to go too much down the political rabbit hole, but if you remember, it literally came down to, we're going to elect the first female president. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, that was what it was.
And Trump is terrible. Those were the two messages from the left in like 2015.
Literally Hitler.
Yeah. It's like Trump is terrible, and we're going to elect the first female president. And it's like, that's great. That's a great, funny, not funny, but like a, sorry, let's cut that out. No, I'm just kidding. But it's a great, warm feeling type of thing. Like, oh, we're creating history, you know, like let's do this together.
Well, it was Obama 2.0 is what they were going for.
Right, but Obama was a viable candidate. Like him or don't. That's the thing, is he inarguably had the skills.
Great speaker.
Exactly. And could present that kind of leadership, absolute tone, like when
unifying leadership.
Well,
and there was a lot of criticisms of Obama and a lot of people that hated Obama.
Absolutely.
I don't hate Obama.
I don't either. I actually watch his old clips and I get pumped up kind of, because I'm like, dude, believe him or not, or agree with him or not, that's a leader.
Yeah.
You know, I would follow that guy. You know, if it came down to whether I believe him or not on everything that he says, if the building were burning down or if the country were falling apart, I would trust him. I would believe Obama and I would follow what he said. But when you have other people where there's all this, you know, questioning about like the validity of things that they did while they played another high role in our government, and you just want to be like, oh, well, first female president. It's like, I do want a first female president. I think it would be really cool to say that, but it has to be the right candidate, you know?
Someone like Tulsi Gabbard.
I like it.
I'm not against it either. Like, and that's the thing that I think where they really fucking went wrong in 2016 is someone like you or I were not opposed to having a female president at all, but we were told because we didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton that we were misogynist, racist, piece of shit, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That we supported a dictator. And it's like, well, you know, and everyone will say, you know, it's like, okay, well, we were choosing. I think that was the first year that everyone really went with the lesser, like you hear that a lot, the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
I think 2016 was really the first year where everyone, at least our generation, you know, I remember just hearing it was either a lot of we didn't vote or you just chose the less, what you
I didn't vote in 2016.
What you believed was the lesser of two evils, which I don't think that people felt that way before, honestly.
Yes and no. I think with Trump too, everything is just amplified with him.
Yeah.
Like, it is like a Quentin Tarantino third act is Trump's presidency all the time.
Yeah, well, it's a spectacle.
Yeah.
You know, there's always something. Like, I will even go as far as saying I'm to the point where like a lot of like the news stuff pops up and it's like Trump gave a speech on this, and I'll be honest with you, I don't even want to watch it anymore.
No.
Like it's too much. He almost, I think in my opinion, is leaning too much into it this term. I think he's like too much of the like the nothing speak that really doesn't mean anything, and he's just like kind of the same criticisms that we're talking about with like Hillary, where like she kind of didn't stand for anything, sort of.
She stands for nothing, dude, except corporate fucking greed,
right,
and furthering herself,
right. Well, and I'm not going to say that I think that Trump definitely doesn't stand for anything, but when I listen to his speeches lately, it feels a lot less like meaning behind them, and so I just like I'll read like headlines and I'll read an article if I'm interested, but I don't watch the speeches or I do watch the press conferences, but that's for a different reason.
Well, he's the thing with Trump too, and it was like listening to that Joe Rogan he did for 3 hours. Dude, Trump is grating to listen to. Yeah. For a long period of time. And on that episode, he said funny shit that I laughed at. He's like, I should be a whale psychiatrist. Like, that's the Trump shit that I like.
Yeah.
You know, when he talks about shit like that. But people, they don't. I wish there was someone cool for the left. Basically, like, the Democrats had their Tom Brady and Obama, you know?
Exactly. But now he's gone.
And now he's gone.
Yeah.
And there's dude, I was talking to fucking my buddy Zach, and he had mentioned to me, he said, he was talking about how Steve Bannon said there's a way that Trump can get a third term. Have you heard about this at all?
I've been hearing a lot about this, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, basically...
I don't believe it, by the way.
Well... Okay, so I'll expand upon my thoughts on this in a second.
Okay.
But when he told me, I started laughing out loud because I'm like, that doesn't sound legitimate or legal in any way, but it's also Trump and you really don't fucking know. But basically, it's that J.D. Vance runs. Trump chooses Trump as his vice president.
Okay.
J.D. Vance steps down and Trump is president again for another term.
That would honestly be hilarious.
So I think it would be hilarious, but for the country, I think it's really, really bad.
It is really bad.
It's a bad precedent to set for the troll. I admire it, but I'm like, this is not good for America in general.
Yeah, I don't admire it. I think it's hilarious to think about.
Yeah. But yeah, so he was telling me about that, and there's that meme from It's Always Sunny where Charlie says that when you burn garbage, it goes up and becomes stars. And Mac was like, I want to tell you that you're wrong, but I can't. I don't know enough about stars to dispute that.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about that situation. Where I'm like, it doesn't sound right.
No, it does not.
It doesn't sound right at all or legal in any way. But I don't know enough to dispute like if that could happen. And if it could happen to anyone, I mean, dude, Trump got shot in the head on TV and he lived.
Yeah.
And
One
also
of 3 presidents to get shot and survive, I believe.
Yeah, Reagan was the other one.
Jackson.
And Jackson, yeah. But yeah, we're living in such a wild, weird time. The fact that Trump was president for 4 years, COVID happened, the former vice president, Biden, became president, clearly had fucking dementia the entire time.
Yeah.
Was president during a basically a worldwide catastrophe. And then Trump gets shot in the head. They had that debate first. Trump fucking, I mean, I want to say, saying that he fucking owned him in that debate and just like beat him down is not even technically right because Biden clearly did not have the mental fucking facilities.
It was hard to watch.
We watched it that night. I remember we got fucking Sam's place.
Yeah.
We got wings and brought it back to the house.
Yeah.
It's such a bizarre thing, and like I feel like the mistake that Republicans are making right now, they're just going back to what they've always been, which is the baseball, white picket fence, apple pie. We're religious. We don't like people like Matt Walsh. I fucking hate Matt Walsh, dude. Like the Matt Walshes and the Charlie Kirks and people that are just super fucking, I'm religious, I'm Republican, I think everybody should have 10 kids. I don't jive with that either. So I feel like there's really not a place for me. But by default, since I'm a white guy, I'm automatically considered a Republican. You know what I'm saying?
Well, unless you do some very specific things. But yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But those are, and that's the other fucking thing. It's like, I'm not going to just falsely represent myself so people fucking clap for me.
Agreed.
That's what our culture has become. It's so performative now all the time. Part of it is due to the internet, yes, but this is like a human nature thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the internet changed us in any way. It just amplified the worst aspects of our nature and a lot of the good aspects too. I think having this technology at our fingertips is incredible, but I also think that we've talked about this with AI. Technology is a tool, but oftentimes it gets used as a crutch.
Yes. I think what it really shows is that anything in excess is not good for humans, like as a whole. So I think, it just goes back to the very, the human principle of like anything in moderation is good, right? So I think what the internet created is just anything that you can think of that is bad that you can get on the internet is now available all the time. So,
All the time.
And even things that are not bad, having good things in excess, like completely at your fingertips, can turn bad. So, like an example is, just like obviously communicating with people and talking to people is good, but if you're doing it all the time nonstop, then maybe you start to have a dependency on that communication. You can't ever be alone. And I mean, I'm just laying out one very teeny tiny example. Another example, and actually it's funny because it really put things into perspective. I was listening to Theo Vaughn's podcast and Anthony Jeselnik was on it. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not usually a big Anthony Jeselnik.
No, I think he's kind of a cunt, honestly.
Yeah, I don't like his comedy. And I have heard, because he like has a beef with like Tony Hinchcliffe and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I kind of
THC.
always, yeah, exactly. I showed Indy that clip too. But yeah, no, I always thought that he kind of came off as pompous and things like that. But one of the things that they were talking about in that podcast was how he was talking about how when he was a kid, that the only access that he had to like porn or anything was that his older brother had to literally like steal him, or like he had a friend and his older brother's friend would cut out like one page out of like a nudie magazine and he would give it to him and he had to like buy it from his older brother or something. And he was like, and for all of high school that was my only material. He was like, I had only ever seen one ass and one pair of tits until I was 18. And he mentioned, he was like, I can't even imagine now, kids who have smartphones and it's like they just
system overload,
anything immediately. And I even remember like and I'll admit this, I remember being in middle school and the first time kind of like on my computer,
titties
titties or porn, just sex or whatever. And I remember the first time I came on I went to a porn site, and it was literal, like, I remember I got scared and I closed it out. This is not an exaggeration. I remember seeing it, and I remember seeing so many thumbnails of, like,
it's overwhelming,
different
dude.
things happening, and I was like, it was not what I expected. I was, like, expecting just, like, one girl having sex or something like that, and I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna be great. But instead it was like all these different things in these categories, and like I could see like all the penises and stuff, and I was like, this is not what I signed up for. And now I can't even imagine. And that was when I was in middle school, before smartphones. Like, that was on a desktop, and it's like now you have kids who have iPads and you have all this stuff, and it just makes you wonder. It's like, okay, well, if it's not being monitored, and all the parents are not monitoring it, because we know bad parents, I do at least.
Yeah.
I'm friends with some of them. But it makes me think, like, those kids have access to that, and that definitely has to play a role in, how they grow up and how they, view that type of stuff. And again, that's just one example, but what it comes down to is excess, I guess, was my large point that I was trying to make there.
Yeah.
Back on the Trump thing, just real quick, we're about to get the funniest library of all time, though, when he's done, right?
What do you mean?
Did you know? So I learned this. I've been watching a lot of like obscure, weird YouTube videos. I put them on in the background while I work a lot of times, but every president has to have their own designated library named after them. And that specific library holds every word of this. I honestly might, I don't know if we can look this up or something, but like I don't know if it's every word that I think it's every word that they said officially as president.
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
Is documented and it's housed in that library. So every president who was a president, maybe I can get fact checked on this, but every president has their own library that's named after them, and then in that library is every presidential word that they spoke officially, like as president. So we're about to get some funny, some very long...
Does Trump already have one because he left office? Like, do you know when?
That I don't know, honestly. I'm not sure. I just remember listening to a YouTube video, and it was talking about like facts that you didn't know about presidents after they're president.
Yeah.
And one of the things was every president gets their own library named after them, and every official word that they spoke as president gets documented and put in that library.
Oh, shit. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I knew that presidents had libraries.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious to learn more about that. Where can people find you at, Danny? You have any shows coming up? Have you booked anything?
Not right now. I'm really just working on the production side of things, and then the podcast is going to be coming out soon, probably by the end of summer. You can always find me on Instagram at Shooting the Shit. You can follow Eat Sleep Rock Nashville at Eat Sleep Rock Nashville on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of that. And then our website, it is up. It's undergoing some maintenance right now because I'm adding like all the production stuff. But we are at www.esrnashville.com.
Fuck yeah. Dude, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Keep on dreaming. See you next week.